So this is a strategy that you can use in any classroom situation, and it incorporates the use of visual journals as a way of infusing the visual arts into any curriculum. There are some artists out there and teachers out there doing amazing things with visual journals across the curriculum, and I'd like to recommend a few. One is David Modler, and another is Michael Bell. And if you check out their websites listed below, you're going to see some wonderful things about visual journaling. Now, this particular activity is just one way to use visual journals in any classroom in order to increase student learning. And what this activity is going to do is it's going to help students search for meaning, and we know that meaning creates memory and creates ownership of the curriculum and ownership of the material covered in class. So it winds up helping your students learn more and seek out the solution to the puzzle that you're presenting. So you'll notice behind me I have this sketchbook set up with what appears to be a very odd equation. Now, I'm a visual arts teacher, so my students are trained to look up at the sketchbook board at the beginning of every single class to see what we're sketching today. But this can be done in any classroom. If you do drills with your students or you do a warm-up activity with your students, you may certainly say, take out your visual journals and then write this equation. And if you do this activity enough in your classroom, the students will know that when they see equations like this, that what this means is that they are to take out the magazines for a collage, and they are to find 4 E's, 3 R's, 1 I, 1 M, 1 P, 1 T, 2 R's, and 2 A's. Now, this represents what I'm teaching today. These are the letters in perimeter and area. So I'm using a math lesson to teach how to use this strategy. Now you can do this with your spelling words, you can do this with science vocabulary, you can do this across the curriculum. I just happen to be using perimeter and area as an example. And in those words, perimeter and area, there are 4 E's, 1 M, 2 R's, 2 A's, 1 P, 1 T, 1 I, and 3 R's. So when your students come in, they're already engaged because they're wondering, what does this equation equal? What are these letters representing? I wonder what this is. Eventually, they're going to use them in their visual journals to represent the words perimeter and area, but they don't know this yet. So you give them a few minutes to look for these words in magazines, or these letters in magazines, and to cut them out. Now, if you're strapped for time, or if you have a concern about this being a time issue, one thing you can do, and remember this is a time investment when we teach through the arts, they're a time investment because they actually get students more engaged, so there's less time wasted on boredom and more time engaged in the lesson. But if you're concerned about time, or you're teaching this lesson on a day where time is a factor, one thing you can do is in the beginning of the year when you're having your students create their visual journals or get set up to kind of understand the use of visual journals in your class, what you can do is you can have them create an envelope of letters and have them cut out, 20 E's, or 20 A's, 20 B's, 20 C's, 20 D's, 20 E's, and have them kind of all in an envelope so that they can pull from them. So then this lesson would look like this. The students would come in, they would see this equation, and they would go to their envelope and they would pull out those letters. You can get really creative with this. You can actually have a page in the sketchbook where you take other pieces of paper and tape them in and have the kids put all the A's in one little pocket, all the B's in one little pocket, all the C's in one little pocket. So they have them there to reference for the future. And then maybe every marking period or once a quarter you have them kind of look for more letters. Or you encourage them during independent practice time or time when they have a little downtime to go to the magazines and replenish their letters. You can also, as a teacher, keep a big box of letters or keep several, all the letters of the alphabet, keep separate little boxes of letters for the students to draw from. Or you can give them printed out alphabet sheets and just have them cut out of those, and then they can store the sheets for later. So there's lots of ways to do this. I like to use the magazines because I think the students get really excited about it, and you get lots of different fonts and textures and interesting things. But the choice is up to you. The goal of the first part of the lesson is to perk their curiosity by giving them the equation. Now I'll move on to the next part of this activity. Okay, so I'm here with my visual journal, and your visual journals certainly don't have to be handmade, and they certainly don't have to be as extravagant as the ones that I'm using in my classroom with my visual arts students. They can certainly be just plain hole punch paper in a 3-ring binder. They can be store-bought sketchbooks. The choice of visual journal is really up to you. And maybe in the future I'll do a video on how to create these journals, which were made out of recycled cereal boxes. But here's my visual journal, and I'm just going to flip through. I've been using it for other things, so this is not all math related. But if you were a math teacher, you know, your visual journal certainly might be all math related. So I'm actually going to flip to a brand new page so we can do the next part of this lesson. Okay, so I have my brand new page here, and my students, I've had them cut out all of their letters. So I have all of my E's, all of my A's, all of my T's, and I've had them store them in an envelope during class. So they came in, they saw the equation, they cut out their letters or they pulled out their letters, and they stashed them. Then you teach your lesson. So then you teach about perimeter, then you teach about area. You get their understanding just like you would have if you weren't incorporating the visual journal. So you go ahead and you teach your lesson. Now at the end of class, what you do is you have the students pull out their visual journal, and they're going to take a glue stick and they're going to spell out perimeter and area. So they're going to pull out their P and glue it in, and E, glue it in, and one of their R's. And what you can do, how you can stage this is you can say, okay, so we had 2 different concepts today. Let's take out our letters, unscramble them, and put them in our visual journals so that we can get our 2 vocabulary words down for the day. So you have them do this. They can help one another out too. They can always go back for more magazine cutouts, or if you're doing the thing where they have kind of the letter library, they can do that as well. So I'm spelling out perimeter, P-E-R-I-M. This is really great for spelling words because they have to spell them correctly, but because they're modular, if they make a mistake, they can peel up one letter and move it over. So it doesn't have that permanence of like writing it and then having to unwrite it, you know. I-M-E-T E-R. So here I have my perimeter, yay! And now I'm going to glue in area. Now again, you can use this with science, math, social studies, language arts, etc., etc. It'd be really cool in social studies class to have them cut out the numbers that are in specific dates. So instead of looking for letters, they're looking for numbers. And then they could have the collage date, and then they could write their information as to like what happened during that date. And that would be another good example of how to use this strategy. So I have area here. So here's perimeter and area. Now, this right now could be just the closure of your lesson. So you could end the lesson here for now, and then tomorrow's class have them pull out their visual journals, and the first thing they do is illustrate perimeter and area and what those things mean. However, if you have time during today's class, today being the day that they cut out all of these letters and glued them in, then you could have them illustrate perimeter and area and maybe the equations for how to solve those things all in one shot. And we want to be kind of thoughtful about the primacy-recency effect. So primacy-recency means that students remember most the things that happen first and the things that happen last in a lesson. So the first thing your students had when they came in was, oh, I wonder what these letters are going to represent. So they're cutting out these letters, they're putting these things together, and what I would recommend is before you go into your lesson to create a new moment of primacy or a new moment of firstness, have them stand up and do a movement activity, have them do some brain gym, have them, do one of these activities that Brain Gym recommends, just to kind of give them a brain break, and then sit them back down and then start up your lesson. It just helps to create a new moment of primacy and kind of a restart to get them to adhere more to what you're teaching. So primacy, they did this, new primacy, you teach your lesson. And then the recency thing, since this is the last thing you're doing in class for the day, maybe after they've done their practice in their worksheets and after they've done the textbook work and after you've taught your lesson, to give them that ownership piece where now they're going to illustrate perimeter. So perimeter is what's outside. And you can get really artful with these. Right now I'm just using markers, but you could certainly get more artful with these and use watercolor and use oil pastel. And I really do encourage you to use multiple art materials in your classroom, but I know we don't all have access to those things. But perimeter is what's on the outside. So you'd have your student draw what's on the outside. They can write what's outside or the sides. And they can maybe assign numbers to these things, 6 inches, 6 inches, 3 inches, 3 inches, and then they could have 6 plus 6 plus 3 plus 3 in here, right? And 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 3 is 15, plus 3 is 18. They can write their equation right in here. They can do 2 length times 2 height, or is it 2 width times 2 height? I'm not a math teacher, but they can write their equation in here. They could even take another color and illustrate it like this. And for this, you know, you could certainly tell the students what to draw, but it's even better, it gives them more rehearsal, you know, using the material that you covered in class in a useful way, and it gives them a little bit more onus if they do their illustrations on their own. If they make a mistake, you can always glue a blank sheet of paper on top of these things, or you can go in and make corrections and then have them like redo this. If you're really interested in incorporating the visual arts and you have access to an art material or some paints and you don't mind getting a little bit messy in your class, they could always gesso over this, which is gesso's like a primer. Let it dry over class and then redo their drawings. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. But what's going to happen is as they do these things, they're going to take onus of this. Their visual learning is going to kick in. Their occipital lobes, the parts of their brain that deal with vision, are going to be activated, and they're going to be a lot more excited about this. So area is what's inside. So I'm going to draw my rectangle again. And this time I'm going to use my orange to shade on the inside. And the equation for this is, well, I say base times height, whatever you're teaching, however you teach it. So it would be length times height, or I say base times height, so base times height equals area. So if this is 6, 3, 6, 3, 6 times 3, in this instance is 18. So you might want to give them the equation, because that would make more sense. Maybe 6 and 3 are not the best numbers for this, but you math teachers would know a better way of dealing with this. How can that be? 2, 3. And this is what your students would do too. So if they have it wrong, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, you could go in there and draw with them, and that would also help activate their episodic memory. Oh, I remember when, you know, Mrs. Bishop came over and she showed me that this wasn't really the way it went, and she drew these lines in here, and now I remember. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18's right. Okay, and then 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 9 is 18. Okay, so 6 and 3, you don't want to use those maybe necessarily, but you do want to use visual journals in your classroom as a way to get students engaged and activated in your class. Also, when they go to study, they can go back to their visual journal, and this sketch is going to have a lot more meaning than looking at a worksheet that looks like every other worksheet. So I encourage you to use visual journals in your classroom and to use the visual arts to help teach your key concepts. Again, you can use this in science, you can use this in social studies, you can use this in language arts. I happened to do this for a math lesson and learned a little bit of math myself. So thanks for watching, and I hope you find this activity useful. Post your comments, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.